Welcome, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Remember to spend a bit of time softening up your shoulders and your neck before we practice, just to make the healing and releasing process that much simpler, more accessible. Trying not to hit my microphone here. Remember that overdoing it is as much of an issue as not ever working your body. It's possible to use this until I feel bruised and my body tightens up in response to defend and protect itself. It's also possible to not ever touch this area at all, or to move it so that it becomes a stiff, hardened piece of wood. And I certainly recognize that one is more common than the other, but we have to be aware of both potential mistakes. As usual, let's move into some comfortable standing relaxation posture. Taking the time, now that we've been at this for a few weeks at this point, to more deeply release around your neck, from the base of your neck to the base of your skull, softening the sides of your neck, releasing your throat, the base of your tongue. Letting go of your jaw. As you release the tops of your shoulders, allow your elbows to hang down, feeling as though they're growing heavy, perhaps. Your wrists sinking down, your hands falling along the sides of your body because your shoulders are in the appropriate position. Make certain that as you soften open your chest and the front of your shoulder, that you also soften open your back and the rear of your shoulders. Shoulder blades sinking down your back so that this positioning falls into a natural alignment rather than pulling your shoulder back or pushing it forward or collapsing in either direction. All of this falls through, releasing into the appropriate space. Of course, it does take practice to find that proper alignment, but you can do it. That's why we're here every day. Softening your belly, releasing your lower back, allowing your tailbone to sink naturally. Releasing your hips, your thighs, making certain that your hips and knees are unlocked, softened. Letting go of your lower legs, your feet, allowing your toes to fall to the floor naturally. Remember that if you are wearing shoes right now, that your shoes do not grip and tighten around your feet. Hopefully that you're not wearing high heels or anything that forces your alignment into a strange position. Ideally, you have shoes that allow your feet to fall into a more natural position. That way they can begin to reclaim some of their natural capabilities. If you've been wearing orthotics or supports for your shoes or your ankles for a long time, you may want to slowly decrease those levels rather than going directly barefoot or something, because your body won't know how to compensate. But as long as you are structurally normal, this idea of relatively straight. I myself was born with crooked legs, and so I certainly understand that sometimes we require support systems to make sure that we can stand upright. But if you are somebody who is relatively straight and can wear normal shoes and normal clothing, then ideally you will be able to remove all support systems and orthotics from your shoes so that your feet can regain their own natural capacity to maintain an arch. Your toes are given the opportunity to spread out so that your toes, the ends of your feet where your toes are wider than any other part of your foot. You don't want to have shoes that force your feet to become the shape of your shoes. Instead, it is better to wear shoes that allow your feet to regain their natural shape. And if you do have complicated foot issues going on, please do see a podiatrist or just a general doctor or a specialist who can help, because this is your foundation. Please take care of it. When you're ready, begin drawing gentle circles around the navel. You might want to try this in a slightly wider stance than normal today. Both directions. Slowly spiraling inward, your awareness consolidating in the middle. Today, the emphasis will be talking about the liver sinew channel. We've been talking about the sinew channels in each class. By the way, let me welcome anyone who is new to this series and just stumbled into this set. Please do check down below for links that will lead you to an introduction for this particular series, and as well a link to the first class in this series of 100 days in a row, so that you can start at the beginning and learn in order. For those of you who've been joining me, you know that we've been learning about the various sinew channels throughout the body. The next one we're working on is the liver sinew channel, which, if you did the self-massage series, you'll already have a sense, starts on the big toe, on the top of the foot here, the inside of the big toe, comes around across the ankle, along the inside of the leg, comes up to just above the pubic bone here, and then descends down to wrap the genitalia. And so this liver sinew channel is wide and spreads in through this area and forms a kind of arch, a support system for sinew and stretched ligament and tendon of all kinds, soft connective tissue that runs relatively superficially all the way down from the inside of the feet, the ankles, even including somewhat the arch of the foot here, structurally from the inside. And you can see why I started talking about the feet and the shoes, because when all of this collapses inward on your feet, if there is no arch in your feet and no able support system, if your body is not able to support itself, then everything falls inward and collapses. And this becomes sort of shaped like a V. It becomes closed off in the center. And if your feet are able to stand normally, again, quotes because everyone's body is so different and I'm not there with you, then the weight drops through the center of the foot. Your ankles are in a healthier position, and your crotch forms a kind of rounded space rather than closed off. And the trick with this is, as with any of our practices, you don't want to try to hold or maintain this posture. That would actually make it incorrect because you'd be developing tension habits in the opposite side of what you're trying to release. And so instead, you want to find a way to release appropriately through the legs, through to the center of the feet, and to allow, as your back releases and your tailbone sinks, and your hips and your gua open, for this space to soften open. So it's not a thing that you can create on purpose. It is the byproduct of correct standing, softening through here, and connecting through to your feet into the ground. And the healthy byproduct of that is this sense of roundness and opening through here. And you'll know it when you feel it. It should be something that doesn't feel like a stretch. It certainly shouldn't feel painful. It is a gentle opening of the body. And this opening, at least superficially, occurs through the liver sinew channel, or it's part of that opening. And so as we practice today, because for so many people, this closed, tightened position collapsing inward is this natural way for people to stand. And I want people to begin exploring the possibility of opening through here and through the bottom of their body to the bottom of their feet. And so sometimes a wider stance is useful for practicing and exploring that capacity. So even though normally we'll be standing and doing most of these snake and turtle practices in this comfortable, small shoulder width stance with some variation, today I'm going to encourage people to take a slightly wider stance, comfortably wide, just to experience a little bit of this stretching open, to make certain that your feet are planted through to the center. You're not collapsing and rounding your ankles in. Your knees are pointed through to your toes, not rolling in. You're not collapsing this way, which is another way of folding this space, but rather your lower back softens, your tailbone sinks. As your tailbone sinks, this spreads open. You're supported through your knees to your feet, keeping this space stretched open, not stretching in a yogic sense, but being stretched as in lengthened naturally, the way our arms stretch long because we let them go. I hope that's clear. So as we practice, again, slightly wider stance, let's do a little bit of left and right yin and yang balancing, pouring the weight through one side and then through the other. Softening all the way through down into the ground. Releasing, softening long. Crown of the head continuing to float upward as your hand sinks down. And then, side to side, releasing, lengthening through one side of your neck, lengthening through the other, just as usual, with some added awareness of making certain that this stays open and your lower back stays soft and sinking. Your tailbone settles naturally. Your tailbone settles the opposite end of the spine as the crown of the head flows up, lengthening your spine. And then, softening around your waist, warming your lower back. Spend extra time here if this feels especially good. And if you are noticing that your back tends to get stiff and then loosens up as you warm it, then maybe pause the lesson and go put a heating pad on your back and genuinely get your back and shoulders warm before starting. And you'll find that the practice goes much easier. Snake softening its sides. As usual, this lengthening through the spine, shoulders staying soft. And of course, this added quality of as one leg empties, it falls open, helping to round that space and to find length along the insides of the legs. Please be gentle. You can take as wide a stance as feels comfortable, as long as it helps you find that arch. And closing when you're finished. Even here in this position, as your awareness soaks into the middle dantian, the middle space, softening open your hips, finding space along the inside of the legs. In this case, when I say inside, I'm referring to this line here. Classic statement, kai kwa yuan dong, xi bao yuan, which is kai kwa, to open the gua, the hips, this space, soften them open. As that happens, yuan dong, the dong, the crotch, this line here, rounds in the way that I'm talking about, opens. And as the lower back softens and your hips release, there's this gentle opening and wrapping around the legs that happens. It happens on its own. It's not a thing you have to do. But it's something you might notice as you soften your hips and your legs. And that's part of the expression of the liver sinew channel. And then, working with it directly, let's go right into this gentle pelvic circle. Both directions, feeling this space soften, open. And then, as we move into circling the neck, very often we like to draw our feet together, or perhaps in this case, just for practicing here. Again, circling. These are all simply ways to explore the body, possibilities of movement, and to make sure that every aspect of your body is open and expressive. both directions. Remember that it can be very useful to start these circles extra small if you're somebody with a stiff neck. Only as large as feels comfortable. And at some point, gazing down between your feet, opening the rear of your neck, then looking up and down, softening your throat, lengthening your spine. As you look up and open the front of your body, be careful that you're not closing the back of your body. Just lengthen along the front. Keep your mingmen open, your tailbone settled. Remember, we already saw how if I let the tailbone come up, it flattens this area out. And so by keeping the tailbone soft, by softening your lower back, not by tucking your hips, that helps to maintain this appropriate level of openness along the liver sinew channel. Closing when you're ready. Take as long as you like with any of these practices. You may notice that I'm engaging in a lot of green clothing today and green cup. This is all in celebration of the liver sinew day. In Chinese medicine, Chinese cosmology, the liver is associated with the color green. Good day to celebrate. Maybe it will become a national holiday. Let's soften the shoulders a bit in preparation for releasing the front and the back. Circling all the way around. By this point in your practice, I'm going to assume that you're comfortable with these practices that we're doing, that you have a sense of them after a few weeks of practice. And so I'll emphasize instead the liver sinew channel reminders. So if I turn sideways, you can see my legs stay free, both directions. That as I pour my weight through the front leg, the rear leg doesn't collapse inward, it stays open. And as I pour my weight into the back leg, my front leg stays open. It does not collapse in, closing this off. Maintain this soft expansiveness through the hips. Don't allow your ankles and your feet to collapse inward if that's a common problem for you. Both sides. And just in case it needs to be said, when I am telling you to not allow your feet and ankles to roll in, I am not telling you to hold your feet and ankles out. Please don't do that. You'll simply add more tension than was there in the first place. Instead, you want to find a better way. This is me letting you know that there are better ways to correct the alignment through your legs, through your knees, through your ankles, to your feet. But it can take time. Keep having to remind myself to take a slightly wider stance. As your shoulder blades slide down your back, feel your lower back open, your tailbone sink. It's too easy to try and round your back or something. Instead, as the shoulders sink, let this area open and sink down, both directions. Make sure you maintain a normal, healthy breath, unforced. Simply don't hold your breath. First habit to break is holding your breath. Let's do a bit of softening of the neck, keeping that slightly wider stance, maintaining that softness through the hips, through the crotch, all the way around the quad. Slowly allowing your shoulders to take part in the movement. Smaller and smaller. When the sinew channel is obstructed or unhealthy in some way, oftentimes this liver sinew line shows up with great stiffness, localized pain, sometimes swellings, often genital disorders. But the people who tend to have an obstructed or damaged liver sinew channel often know it because this line in particular is just very tight and frozen in different ways. And so maybe spending extra time healing and working with this particular practice set will help those people heal. I'm hoping that as we go through these various channels and sinews, that people will recognize, oh yeah, that for me is especially important. And then they can spend that practice time emphasizing and just replay that lesson several times to help them learn to open and to heal that particular imbalance. We're all imbalanced in some way. Let's do a little bit of releasing of the neck. Slightly wider stance if you're working with us. Make certain that, especially with this wider stance, that you keep your hips facing forward and that opposite hip and knee open. Especially today, that's important. Also looking down and up. Closing. Let's do a little bit more releasing of the neck. Now that we're this far into the form, it's okay to increase the number of these repetitions, lengthening. Remember to lengthen vertically and then lengthen horizontally. Don't crunch the back of your neck or tighten the back of your shoulders. We're still practicing opening, lengthening. And then likewise here, we lengthen outward. We don't go down, we go around and out. As though someone was pulling on our arms from the outside all the way down. And then gently releasing side to side. And then trying the more sophisticated version. I'm going to look to my right, touch my left ear, circle over, look to my left. I'll release and then change hands. Continuing to use my hand to help this process. Staying soft and relaxed. Avoid trying to duck your head or to lift your shoulder. Keep all of this soft as you turn from side to side. Wonderful. Give your arms a moment to release, your shoulders and your neck softening. And then opening. Lengthen your spine. Crown of the head floats up to meet your hands. Whole spine lengthening. Feels good. A little bit of black tea. Let's do some preparations for black snake, including this movement. Maybe again, I'll take a wider stance to emphasize that opening through along the inside of the leg. As I turn to my left, I don't let this collapse inward. Close this. This stays open. And then crown of the head floating up, tailbone sinking down. Soft release all the way down through your body to your toes. Once more on either side. Shoulders softening down, neck is lengthening. As you sink down through and your lower back softens and your tailbone releases, your hips open, A wave of softness traveling to the feet, lengthening and softening along that liver sinew line. Closing. Let's do a bit of black snake. Again, that wider stance. Softening open your hips, your tailbone sinks, your lower back opens. Please do take your time. Be gentle with your body. I'm going to put one hand on my lower back, softening, lengthening around. As I turn my waist this way, this hip stays open. I'm going to put one hand on the back of my head for now, turning to look behind without twisting my knee and closing my hips, looking up and back, down and back. And then again, softening down through the tissues. You take your time. Opening your hips. Releasing down. As you soften your lower back and open your hips, have a wave of softness travel through to your feet. Also making certain that as you spiral through your body and twist around the tree, so to speak, that you are not folding and kinking at any one location, but you're getting an even twist throughout the length of your spine so that everything is opening a little bit, but nothing is opening too much. Please do be gentle since I can't be there with you. Feel free to send me videos or pictures, and I'm happy to offer you critiques if you need them. Taking the time to settle. And do remember that I have many hundreds, possibly thousands by the time that you watch this, of classes and hours of teaching on the Patreon page. You can find me there. Lots more individualized instruction. Sometimes that's an easier format for people to learn in. Let's do some prep work for white snake. As you let go, again emphasizing this softening down through the hips, through this arch in the legs. to the feet without collapsing in or folding in. Crown of the head continues to release upward. This opens, this opens. That way that liver sinew channel is never compromised. It is always expressing its openness. As your lower back opens, that allows your tailbone to sink, that allows your hips to open, that arch from the inside of the feet along the inside of the legs to the center of the crotch. All of that is able to open. Especially with a wider stance, make certain this doesn't close. Arch and open from your lower back all the way around. Expanding open the space in the front here as well, just above the pubic bone. I like emphasizing this release down toward the legs, palms forward, the hands coming to rest on the sides of the legs. That helps to arrange the shoulders into a more appropriate position. But it's also okay to do this smaller version. Releasing your hands away from each other, away from the shoulders, not by pushing them out, but by letting them fall away from your body. And this is the same thing that is happening through your hips, your knees, to your feet. It's as though they fall away from your body. A little bit of white snake. I'll try not to hit my mic here. Please do for today emphasize this quality of the hips opening as you move. So this remains lengthened rather than closed. People close their hips all the time, and that sinew channel, that liver sinew channel, I'll just keep repeating it, doesn't have the chance to express itself, to be long and open. Even if you do the version of white snake sticking out its tongue where you step and step. And this is a way to practice. Even during then, you always remain open. Let's do a bit of work for golden snake. Turning your waist. Notice that my hips are not turning, which you can see how that closes here. If this stays open, that means my hip stays open. That means my waist has to do the turning. Turning the waist rather than twisting the knees. Notice my leg falls open as I turn around. That maintains that opening through the sinew channel. Hip stays open. Hip stays open. Waist turns. Eventually you'll have Tanxian movement as one of the pivots, and this actually circles with that movement. While the waist turns, the lower back is released, and the hips stay stable, but also rotating in their way. The knees, the ankles, everything stays quiet, centered. That's how things can act as a pivot. If something's moving around too much and it doesn't have a center, then it's not a pivot, it's kind of a wild piece. Hips open. I'll keep reminding you. Don't allow your feet to collapse in, your ankles to roll inward. Don't start gripping with your toes or your lower legs. Your legs stay soft and open. Your lower back and tailbone settled. So no matter which way you turn, your hips are quiet and open. Your waist is allowed to express itself and be free. It's part of what we're practicing. So golden snake is particularly useful for exploring this, but only as long as we're able to maintain that sense of length along the liver sinew channel. And so if you find it difficult to feel this softening open along the inside, then be extra careful as you turn your waist because it may mean that you are twisting your knees and your hips. And as long as this is falling open and through, and there's this sense of lengthening through the tissues, that superficial sinew channel, as long as that's present, that means your hips and your knees are being safe and you're standing appropriately. So it can be useful to develop that feeling, in the very least, to know that you are not hurting yourself. And once it develops, then you'll always notice it, and you'll notice if you're doing something wrong. So as I turn my waist and turn my waist, it's that turning of the waist that shifts the weight from the left leg to the right leg. Turning the waist moves your weight. Shifting happens on its own. Master Zhezheng would say, shift happens. And as you shift, if I move to my left leg, my right hip and leg open, away, because they're emptied. They're falling open. Shift my weight to my left leg, my right leg falls open. And then, of course, the opposite happens. For the weight to my right leg, my left leg falls open. As I mentioned with the sinew channel, that if it feels cold and stiff, and especially along this particular sinew channel line, this is one of those lines where there isn't a lot of musculature or solid places for you to get in there and try to massage or to work with your fingers. And if you've noticed that it actually does feel a little less stiff, a little less gripping when your body is warm, maybe when you're lying in bed or if you're sitting in a bathtub, then I highly recommend finding a doctor of Chinese medicine to spend some time doing some work, maybe especially moxibustion or other various warming methods, applying warming liniments or oils or doing acupuncture in this area. And you'll find it can be really helpful for loosening up that line and to creating more potential for movement and stability through this area. Because this is an area of great stability when it's open and warm and able to express itself. You might already be feeling it better just after this one hour session of practice. Notice my hips staying open as I pour the weight from one leg to the other. Waist turns. The weight pours without you having to try to lean or shift your hips. This will also close that liver sinew channel. Learn to sink and to sink, just like how we started in the beginning in basic posture in that left and right yin and yang practice. As you open the sky and close the earth, it's as though your upper body expands open to fill the heavens. The whole upper body releases. The lower body then consolidates. It settles. It doesn't constrict, but it sinks, becomes stable and quiet, quiet. And then here, as we open the earth and close the sky, Di Kai, Tian He. You consolidate the upper body, allow it to sink and to settle like we do when closing. And then we open the earth, and that part of that earth is this liver sinew channel. We expand to the feet, closing the upper body. Let's do a few extra of these. Useful one today. Opening that liver sinew line, expanding, rounding, and strengthening that arch as though we're standing on an arch. You're doing great. Keep softening your neck and shoulders. Remember, I'm emphasizing certain areas, but this practice is still focused on creating more fluidity and openness here. Opening along the front of the body without collapsing your lower back. Softening down. Let your hips travel back. Even though it looks like your body is traveling downward, let your hips travel back and then your hips travel forward. That does the moving of your torso for you. You don't want any sense of pressure in your lower back. Only as far down as your hips travel back. It's okay if it's only this far. But notice that my neck is long, my spine is straight. I'm not doing strange things with my back. One more. Hips settling, legs releasing as much as you're able to without adding tension. And then when you feel ready, whole body wave comfortably. And then, turtle drinking tea. Take your time. Emphasize the hips traveling back, keeping your lower back safe. Only as far down as feels comfortable. And then, softening from the tip of your tailbone to the top of your head. And then leading with your chin and your nose, top of your head. Opening the front of your body. Don't close the back of your body. And then soften down. That nice wave down to your feet. Since we're a few weeks into the practice, let's do some extra movements here. But please be gentle if you find this difficult for any reason. Do fewer. It's okay to do them seated. Shoko sensei actually prefers to do this movement sitting in a chair. So it's certainly a wonderful possibility if it's something you would prefer. In fact, so you can see them, maybe I'll do a couple in the chair. My little stool here is not perfect for it because it's a little bit wobbly, but stretching open the liver sinew channel. And then again. You can also do it leading all the way through with the nose, top of the head. Those are completely legitimate versions. They don't engage the legs, of course, in the same way. And as far as the liver sinew channel, it doesn't give the same kind of exercise for that. But for the people who need a better alternative, that is certainly one of them. We all need to make the form comfortable for us. We'll continue to change throughout our lives, growing healthier, sometimes the other direction, especially as we get older and older. And so it's good to know the options of flexibility. I'm about 50 now, and I'm hoping that in another 20 or 30 years I'll become as good an example of health and longevity as my instructor is for the rest of us. Both Master Jirchung and Shoko Sensei are fantastic examples of athleticism as they age. As you soften downward through your body, take the time to make sure that your wrists and your elbows and your shoulders and your neck are soft before moving on. Maybe it takes a moment for your chest and upper back to release, or your belly to soften, your lower back to allow your tailbone to sink. And as you sink down, you lead with the tip of the tailbone, that Hui Yin point at the perineum. And then as you lead on the way up, you lead with the top of the head. And this is much easier if you take the time to soften and let go so your body can fall into correct posture. As you dip your hands into the earth, it's as though you gather fresh, clear vitality from the ground, and it flows up the inside of the legs along that line that we've been working through the perineum, up in this area, at the top of the liver sinew channel. So as you circulate, returning again to the middle, that liver sinew channel is given the chance to be revitalized and nourished with your awareness and your posture. As you turn your waist, allow that movement of your waist to pour the weight through from one leg to the other. And as you do that, leave your hips free. Don't let your hips turn. If I was to stand behind you and hold on to your belt loop on your pants, or just hold your hips, I would keep you from twisting. Imagine that I'm doing that. And as that happens, and you pour the weight, this leg gets to empty. There's no weight in it. So it falls open. And that happens on the other side. You'll see my knee fall open. I'll exaggerate it just a little bit. This helps to maintain that arch, allowing the liver sinew channel to be softened open. Try not to hit my microphone here. Falling into this comfortable, basic posture again. Allowing your awareness to slowly sink into your body, in toward the bones. Some special awareness for this liver sinew channel we've been focusing on. Just for a moment, to recognize that it's full and unencumbered, unblocked. And then again, notice the freedom in your neck and your shoulders, sinking in to nourish the joints, the bones in that area. All the way down to your fingertips. Warmth from the hands, soaking into the space around the eyes, softening around and behind your eyes. Especially if you're somebody who tends to carry a lot of mental tension, thinking a lot. It's often very common that we then spend a lot of time tightening our face, gripping our eyes, releasing all of that. Easy to make chi stagnate in the head. So we don't want that to happen. So we take the time to release all of that potential stagnation. If you did the 100-day self-massage series, perhaps you already know a lot of the sequence, and you can feel free to improvise, add more of what feels good to you. Take out the ones that maybe take a little too long. But feel free to circulate freely through your head. We just do a shortened version for this particular Qigong set. Especially emphasize warming and releasing around that big bone at the base of the neck, C7. Da Jue, the great hammer. Again, I'll try not to hit my microphone here, but please do take the time to soften open the front of the shoulder. You can also, as you release this area here, this is the beginning of the lung channel, you can take the time to let your breath get a bit deeper. Inhaling, as this area releases, you may feel it expand, and that helps to nourish the breath a bit as you practice. By softening the lower back, this helps the glutes and the tailbone to sink appropriately. Especially today, softening through the hips, through this area. This This in and out I know is difficult for a number of people. Gently doing this. This is another one that if you find it especially difficult can be done in a chair. Softening open through here. Feels good. And let's take extra time shaking the hips to shake the shoulders. Make sure that you're not holding your breath and you can let the breath go out through the mouth so that any movement through the body can find its way out easily. Make sure you maintain this openness as you shake. So part of the shaking is traveling through that liver sinew channel. You can hear that my voice is fairly unaffected by all this shaking because I'm not shaking hard. My body is simply moving in a relaxed way. I'm not holding my breath, not using force, but my whole body's shaking. Thank you, everybody. It's wonderful to have you here. Keep up the good work. A little bit every day, your body continues to heal and improve. I believe in you. I'll see you tomorrow.